In the meantime, please private chat Latanya, your name and organization. All right, I think we should get started. We appreciate those folks who are on time, and certainly we don't want to penalize them. So let's get started. We want to welcome everyone to our annual meeting on priorities. My name is Craig Wong. I'm a program administrator with the Department of Social Services, and I'm also a co-chair with Westchester County Continuum of Care. I want to introduce Carl, and he can say a word or two, the other co-chair, and also the co-facilitator for today's meeting. Carl, anything you'd like to say or welcome?
Welcome everybody, and this is your chance to add data about what's needed that we don't capture in our annual point in time count. This is really your best chance to add to the record. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. Thanks.
Great, great. I also want to let you know, Allison and Latanya are behind the scenes working to keep us afloat, and part of our CoC team that they cover the loose ends and keep us going and keep us on track. So they're behind the scenes working and checking the chats and everything else and taking attendance. So they're also with us. So again, welcome everybody. I thought the best way to start is to kind of share a little bit about our CoC briefly. Don't want to assume that everyone that's on the line is a part of our CoC or really knows what it is that we do. In fact, we're hoping that we have a lot of newcomers on the line today, because really that's the purpose of this meeting, which we'll talk about. So who are we? The Continuum of Care Partnership, or CoC as we generally like to call it, exists all over the United States. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires any organization seeking federal funding for housing or services for people experiencing homelessness to belong to a CoC. The Westchester County CoC, or Continuum of Care Partnership to End Homelessness, is a public-private partnership including government organizations, social service organizations, nonprofits, for-profit entities providing housing and services to people experiencing homelessness. Some organizations, some CoCs across the country has advocates, they have landlords, property owners. So in essence, anyone who has a desire or interest to address the homeless issue in their community can be a part of the CoC. All are welcome. What's our mission? The mission of Westchester County Continuum of Care Partnership to End Homelessness is basically that: to coordinate all stakeholders, systems, resources available to prevent and end homelessness in Westchester County. It's a big task, but I think we can do it. And how do we go about doing that? We provide knowledge and engage the general public, general population for Westchester County to understand issues concerning homelessness. You know, not everyone really knows a lot about the homeless population in Westchester County. So part of what we do is we want to educate folks. We identify housing and services needed for persons experiencing homelessness or those at risk of homelessness. And again, that's one of the reasons why we're gathered here today, is we want to hear what are some of the needs out there? What are some of the things that we might not be seeing? So we want to hear from you guys. We distribute relevant information to Westchester County service providers to address housing needs. A big thing with our CoC is training. Training is very important to us. We often, we have trainings quite regularly to address issues in the community, to give agencies support in carrying out the roles that they have to address homelessness. Very important to us. We also mobilize resources to help individuals and families achieve economic stability. Funding, very important. We're always on the lookout for additional funding, federal, state, local funding to help us address the homeless issue in Westchester County. We encourage the development of a diverse array of permanent, affordable, subsidized, and supportive housing throughout Westchester County. We all know that in Westchester County, housing is at a premium. It is not easy for low-income families to achieve, permanent housing. So we're always on the lookout. How can we mobilize? How can we create? How can we assist with, advancing affordable housing for Westchester residents? Lastly, effectuate all continuum of care responsibilities as set forth by HUD. HUD is a major contributor funding source for Westchester County relating to our services for homeless programs. And so with that said, we have to ensure that we as an organization are following all the HUD guidelines. We support agencies that have HUD funding to make sure that they're following the HUD guidelines, because HUD funding is very important to us. We want to keep what we have, and we also want to apply for additional HUD fundings. So lastly, why are we gathered here today? What is our purpose? Well, one, HUD requires all CoCs to have an annual meeting on priorities. But more importantly, we know that it's very important that we reach out to those in the community. We certainly don't sit around our monthly board meeting table and feel that we have all the answers. In fact, we know we don't have all the answers. So this is an opportunity to hear from you guys. What's important? Are there currently any unmet? Somebody can help me with that. Any needs that are being unmet? Thank you. Suggestions to improve current homeless services. There's always a better way to do something. Maybe we're not seeing it. Strategies to prevent and end homelessness. Is there any additional strategies that you guys would like to share with us so we can implement and consider in the coming year? This meeting is your opportunity to help us determine what improvements can be made to our system. So, this is very important. We look forward to hearing from you guys. We do have some folks already on the agenda, but if there are any others, we would like for you guys to, let us know. We do ask that everyone keeps their presentation to about 3 minutes, because we do have quite a few presenters, and we want to make sure we have an opportunity for everyone to speak. Allison, did you want to add anything before we go into our presenters?
I would just like to remind everyone that if you're not the speaker, to keep your line on mute to reduce the background noise so that we have the best meeting possible. Thank you for being here. We're simulcasting to YouTube today, and we are going to be recording. So if you do not wish to be recorded, you can let me know about that in the chat, and I will stop recording your portion when you are the speaker. Otherwise, you will be featured with our 5 whole subscribers to our CoC channel, and the video will be made available on our website, which, if you haven't visited it, it's a great resource, wcochomeless.org. So thanks very much.
One more thing before we start. If you want to submit anything in writing, if you can try to get it to us by like Monday. I'm going to try to write a summary of the report as an official document of the CoC about the additional information about needs that we got this year. So if you'd like to contribute anything that could be included in that, otherwise I'll try to summarize your results. But if you have any specific facts or estimates or footnotes kind of things, giving them to us in writing would be helpful. And that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Carl and Allison. Very good point. Again, this meeting, we take it very seriously. We document and we want to make sure that we can review the suggestions that are being made for implementation, if at all possible. So yes, please submit your presentations in writing if you're able. All right, great. So our first speaker we have on our agenda is Children's Village. So Children's Village, you guys can proceed.
Good morning. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carl, and thank you, committee, for this opportunity. I am Dr. Jeremy Cohumban. I am the president and CEO at the Children's Village. We are right here in Westchester in many parts. I'm speaking to you from our campus in Dobbs Ferry. We serve children and young adults, and we come into contact with them through many engagements in Westchester County. And our community teams, led by Warren Kent, Alexis Santiago, and some of you know the Bravehearts. If you haven't heard Jessica, you should. Gave me an update on our experience, and I wanted to share with you the reports that we have from our teams in the community. An unduplicated count of young adults aged 18 to 24 years who in the last year reported as being housing unstable, meaning that they're living doubled up in shared spaces where they're not always welcome, but they make it through. There's couch surfing. In some cases, they're trading the only thing they have, which is their body, for a bed and for food, and in a few cases, living on the streets. The Bravehearts, who are now almost 200 strong, with many in Westchester, reported 7. Our Step Aftercare program, which is the program that supports young people coming out of foster care and going back home, reported 4 young adults. And our supportive housing program in Westchester had 35 contacts with young adults aged 18 through 24 that said that they were either homeless, being homeless, and in crisis. So a total of 46. I think I have 1 more minute, so I'm going to throw something else in because Craig said we're looking for ideas. We think the future to our work is actually thinking about home ownership. We really think that's a step we need to take beyond the idea of simply affordable housing. And we also think that the kind of housing that we bring to market should be good enough for our own. It should be in neighborhoods where you and I would want to live, with access to transportation, and with the kind of services we would want our own children to have. And this week we broke ground on the Eliza in Inwood. It's in the news, you can read about it. And it's a model for what we think future development could look and feel like, where the kind of services that people need, that young adults need, are built in to the neighborhood. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Cohumban. We work very closely with Warren and Alexis and those folks, and they're great. They are great partners in this effort. And, certainly young people are on our hearts. They're on our minds. When you talk about doubling up, when you talk about the trafficking, I just couldn't do that work. It breaks my heart. And it's certainly something that is on our mind. It's on our agenda. So thank you for bringing those points up.
Thank you.
Allison, would you pull the agenda back up and let's go to the next presenter? Thank you. Okay, so Candace,
Good morning.
good morning.
Can you see? Oh, hi, there I go. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, so I'm Candace Kane from Family Service Society of Yonkers, the residential manager of our housing program here. And we want to present the need for more housing for individuals with physical disabilities. So our Homestead program started in 2003, and Homestead specializes in housing homeless individuals with physical disabilities. There is a need for accessible housing for our homeless population that needs to be placed, and the shelters are a good temporary space, you know, until they receive housing. But with their medical conditions, it can be a hazard and very dangerous for them to stay in the shelters. Some clients contact me and they're at shelters that they're not able to move around. They're not able to receive services like home care because they're unable to care for themselves and take care of their well-being and their hygiene. And they need to be placed somewhere where they can be comfortable and receive assistance, especially medical assistance. So Homestead is the type of housing program that assists with that. So most of our clients receive home care services in addition to housing. We also provide case management services to ensure that they're going to their medical appointments and they're taking their medication. We refer them out if they're not under the care of a physician or need additional services like mental health or substance abuse services. So we provide kind of like a wraparound services for our clients. So I think it's important during this time during the pandemic to make sure that we get our clients that have compromised immune systems and are at a disadvantage out of the shelters and into permanent supportive housing to be able to have a sustainable life and not kind of fall to the hands of this disease that we're going through right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Appreciate your presentation. Appreciate you bringing that those concerns back up to us. Certainly, we know that permanent supportive housing is a big deal in Westchester County. You're talking about a lifetime subsidy for those individuals who have a chronic disability. It's always something that's on our radar as a CoC and as funds become available, but really appreciate you keeping that at the forefront, Candace. All right. Brittany.
Hi, how are you? My name is Brittany Hodgins. I'm the assistant director at Hope Store. It's a domestic violence shelter in Westchester County. And I wanted to talk with you guys today about domestic violence and homelessness. So I am going to quickly take over everyone's screen and share a quick PowerPoint. Okay, whoops. All right, guys, bear with me. Okay. So first, I wanted to start out by talking about some United States stats, just so you guys are aware. Some of you maybe already are, but 1 in every 4 women and 1 in every 7 men have been a victim of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. On average, 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the US, and this equates to 10 million people in 1 year. And then these are some local provider stats between between Hope Store and my sister's place. So in the most recent data collected on the need for housing for survivors in Westchester in a single year, my sister's place received 1,000 428 requests for shelter. Hope Store received 701 requests for shelter. And then Westchester's DV hotlines received 1,383 requests for shelter. For every household we house, there are 120 households we cannot serve. In 2019, the Westchester County Continuum of Care Gaps Analysis estimated that for the 79 households made homeless by DV in our shelters, there were 26 dedicated program openings. So that leaves a lot of people still unhoused. A housing to unit ratio of 3.04. The number of phone calls received in 1 year where the caller indicated that they would be homeless if they left their residence was 3,132. So that means that the household to unit ratio jumps up to 120.5. So in response to these 3,132 calls for help, in 2019, the RISE Rapid Rehousing Program at CHOP was implemented. There are currently 30 households enrolled as the program continues to expand. In 2021, the New York State created the Emergency Housing Voucher Program, and to date, 58 households made homeless by DV have applied. In 2022, Highgate Tower will open in New Rochelle and accept 77 households made homeless by DV to their apartment-based voucher program. These are all excellent opportunities, and we must continue to grow and have more programs like this. And I also just wanted to note that we have prioritized a prioritization of households who are made homeless by DV in the New Start Rapid Rehousing Program at West Tab. However, the nature of the referral criteria is not formally tracked, but we did still want to add that information. And I know personally, I've worked at our shelter for over 10 years, and this is the first real opportunity in a long time that we've had to get our survivors and clients housed. I know in the past a couple months alone, we've been able to get a lot of our clients in through RISE, and we're very hopeful that all of these EHVs will pan out, and we'll also get our clients in apartments due to that. So thank you guys. I appreciate your time. That's it for me. And I will stop sharing my screen. Thank
But
you.
you will share your PowerPoint with us? You will have a copy? Great.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Brittany. You know, it's encouraging. We have some opportunities now for DV, and we have some upcoming opportunities for DV. But at the same time, we know that our DV shelters are full. And I know that's something that is on the mind of my commissioner. We had a conversation not too long ago about that. So yes, still some work to be done, but thank you for bringing that information to our attention.
Definitely. Thank you.
Before we go to our next presenter, just if you're not on the agenda and you would like to speak, you know, please chat Allison and let her know so we can give you, you can give us a heads up that you would like to speak. All right. Any questions from anybody before we go to our next presenter, or is there anything anyone would like to add? Okay. All right, great. So then let's go to children and families. Josh, are you with us?
He was going to join us at 10:30 and it's only 10:27. So
Okay.
if we could let Allison step into the batter's box here to buy him time.
Sure, sure.
Okay, I will get myself set up here. Easier for when I do it for everyone else than when I do it for myself. Okay, so what I'd like to talk to you about today is the LGBTQ plus population who is experiencing homelessness in Westchester. So this population is really often overlooked. We do go out of our way to accommodate, but I think there's a lot more we could be doing. So I put together some concrete steps that I believe we could take in order to better serve people who are LGBTQ plus and experiencing homelessness in Westchester County. So according to a recent Gallup poll, 5.6% of the United States population identifies as LGBTQ plus. And so that means that out of the 1,383 homeless people that we're serving in 2021, 78 of them are people who are members of the LGBTQ plus community. And I know that number may seem small, you know, compared to that 1,383 people, but it still doesn't mean that they should be marginalized, because no one that we serve should be marginalized compared to other people that we're serving. I am the leader on some of these groups. So we have 78 LGBTQ plus people. That's a conservative estimate, because we know that LGBTQ plus people experience homelessness at a higher rate, because there's often an element of rejection by their family. There's often elements that they're dealing with for increased instances of substance use, mental health, and the other things that come to a person from trauma, and that trauma of not being accepted by their community. So we have 78 LGBTQ people who we don't talk about. And we have 19 veterans as of this week who we talk about every single week and have specialized housing programs for. And we have 79, according to the GAPS analysis, households who are DV survivors, and we're moving forward and creating opportunities for them. So we really need to include LGBTQ plus people when we are thinking about and creating future opportunities. This week, we hosted our first ever LGBTQ plus cultural competency training to talk to people about the different types of identities that exist and how best to engage with people when they enter your shelter, so that they're not re-traumatized or traumatized while they're already experiencing homelessness based on their identity. So what we learned in that session was that all of our providers are very open and welcoming and wanting to accommodate people who are LGBTQ plus, but they feel that they have limitations, and they felt that HUD is mandating this equal access rule, but our local current configuration really doesn't support that mandate, and we're going to have to start taking a closer look at that. So we identified 3 things that could happen right away. One is find the space. So we've been told in the past, just call DSS, or oftentimes people call me when you have someone where their gender identity, it doesn't match the identity of the segregated by gender shelter. And so it can take hours or a great deal of time to find a safe place for that person to stay. That safe place should be set up in advance. We're told we don't have the space, and yet when COVID came to call, we found the space for there to be 6 feet between beds. If we can find that space, we can find space for our LGBTQ plus people. Ask everyone for their pronouns. Everyone, however they look to you. If they could look female presenting to you, they could look male presenting to you. Everyone should be asked, because it creates a safe space for people who have gender identity differences in their presentation from their identity to talk about it and share about it and be acknowledged in a way that doesn't other them or out them. Right now, We have colleagues that if they get a piece of paper that's a government document and it has an identity on it that doesn't match what they think the person in front of them's presentation is, they will out that person. They will call that person by the incorrect pronouns, the incorrect gender, and the incorrect name. That shouldn't be allowed to happen, because that is something that's attached to privilege, to be really honest. On average, it costs a person to transition from one gender to another $19,000 to $176,000. That's a lot for people who are entering our shelter system with nothing and cannot afford the rent every month. So we are serving a lot of people who cannot medically transition even if they wanted to. And they don't have to want to, but it's an avenue that's often closed to them. We should also be educating our landlords about the equal access rule, because all of our HUD programs need to allow people who are LGBTQ+ into our shelters and into our housing programs equally to everyone else. We need to get out in front of it before landlords can reject people on the basis of their gender presentation being different than their identification, or the gender of their spouse when their spouse comes with them to view the apartment. You know, these are all real examples that have happened, people who have come through our system. I included the equal access rule information here. I'm not going to go into it because we did just have a training on this and everyone here should have been present. So if you weren't, that is recorded and available on our YouTube site. But basically, the legal obligation of our CoC is that all of our organizations must ensure that everyone who enters will not be discriminated against based on actual or perceived gender identity, and where the legitimate consideration of sex or gender is appropriate, the individual's own self-identified identity will govern. So that means in our gender segregated shelters, the person's identity should indicate their access to the shelter where they wish to stay. And the staff should do their best to make that a safe environment for them. I've included the sources of everything that I've mentioned in this presentation, and this will be available as a PDF. If you'd like to get in touch with me and talk more about how we serve our LGBTQ community, or if you have ideas about how we can better serve them, I invite you to contact me. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Allison. Very well said. And just a reminder, we did have that training. If you weren't able to make the training, it's up on our website, the CoC website, for you guys to take a look at. So thank you. Josh, I see that you're with us.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hi, Craig, how you doing?
Good, thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone, for being so late. I had a 10 o'clock thing that just got out, but appreciate you letting me squeeze in this morning, and happy to see everyone's face. So I'll get started. So I'm from Westchester Children's Association, and we've been working with partners across the county on children in youth homelessness, specifically kind of lifting up some of the data trends and pieces that are sometimes not really looked at. And so we actually just released a data dashboard that I'll show a snippet of in a minute, but I just wanted to give a little bit of context here. So we released a report back in 2019 called Making the Invisible Visible. And it really outlined, some of the challenges in Westchester related to homelessness, some opportunities, potential for collaboration. We've since have formed a work group, related to this. And so we've really been focused on the data part of it. Looking at some of the data that is available, and then what's not available, what are some of the gaps. So we've dug really deep into the New York State Education Department's data, their data, to look into some of those trends that I just mentioned. So one of the things that we've really seen is about 63% of students experiencing homelessness in pre-K through grade 12 are doubled and tripled up, meaning that they don't have a home of their own, they're sharing space with others. So that's this statistic. And I can also drop this in the chat just so everyone has a chance to look. But this statistic here, so out of 2,357 students in the 2019-20 school year, almost 1,500 of them were doubled or tripled up. And so we got this information from the Freedom of Information law, by request to the New York State Education Department. And this is definitely something that we're looking at. We wanted to just bring this forward to the Continuum of Care for their awareness as well. Just, some of the trends that are happening in Westchester in this data.
Josh, I don't think you're showing the dashboard.
What am I showing? Is it my email? Oh my
You're
God.
sharing the letter, yeah.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, everyone. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm like running around this morning.
Uh-huh.
Still not going?
There we go. What? Now you
Alright.
took it away.
Okay, here we go. You see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, Carl. So yeah, so this is a quick overview of our dashboard. We have many, many tabs here, but the one that I'm showing you is category of homelessness, and this is from the New York State Education Department. So you can see that, a significant portion, I mentioned 63% of students pre-K through grade 12 were doubled or tripled up, without home of their own, shared space with others. And then, the other remaining 35% or so are in these other categories.
It's interesting about hotels and motels because I never hear of them.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting, and I could drop this link in the chat in case people want to look more, but I know we have a 3-minute time limit, right? So I don't want to overstep.
The other striking thing is the proportion of minority. The race chart to the side shows that 92.2% are Black or Hispanic.
Yes, that is a great point. That's something we definitely noticed, and we broke everything out by race, ethnicity, and I think in some cases gender, but the disproportionality where 92% or so are Black or Hispanic students is really striking, in particular when we focus on race equity.
And it's also the only way you can see race not diluted by the barriers from shelters, because this is everyone who's homeless in every way they could be homeless. So some groups may double up more than come into shelters, but this shows a whole picture more accurate than our PID count of the whole population.
Thank you.
Josh, I also wanted to point out that people can change the school district so that what you're showing of Westchester, but I found it really, I was playing around with this yesterday. You guys did an excellent job on it, and it's very easy to use. So if you wanted to focus in on certain school districts, you can easily do that.
Thank you, Annette. Yeah, appreciate that. And I'll make one note and I will drop this in the chat, but there are some school districts that have less than 5 students who are identified as homeless. So in those cases, let me see if I can pull one up. If they have like more than 1 student, but less than 5, you won't see any data. So for example, for Ardsley, there's 2 students who identified. It's not gonna show their race because that's an identifier. So they could be, identified through this data, which is not what we want to have happen, or the housing status, but you would be able to tell that there are students who are experiencing homelessness because we don't want to share those unique identifiers with the public.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, of course. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Very good information. Something we certainly will continue to look at. Allison, are there any other presenters other than Carl? Anyone else wanted to speak, or is there anyone on the line that wanted to share with the group any concerns you'd like to bring to our attention?
This is Judy with the City of White Plains. I really appreciate everybody's presentations today. It's been really helpful and really good information. The one group that I just wanted, I don't have any solutions or information, just to say that we're in White Plains. It seems like we're seeing a lot of seniors that are homeless. And so I know that's another vulnerable group. I just wanted to put that out there as something that we're seeing.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would definitely second that in terms of, especially in terms of the people who are homeless, unsheltered. We have a lot of people who their obstacles are mainly that they are older and that they are poor. And they don't have a disability and they don't have an ability to earn and increase their income in a way that would make a rapid rehousing opportunity appropriate for them. So that's a big challenge.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share before we turn it over to Carl to carry us home?
I just wanted to make 2 remarks, if that's okay. For the Children's Village presentation, I 100% agree that home ownership is the key to generational wealth, and generational wealth is really what stops the cycle of poverty. If you have someone who can pass down to you, then you are better off than you could have grown by yourself, no matter how hard you worked at it. And also just a big thanks to Josh, especially for the WCA website. It's tremendous in the amount of data that you have there and tools. And when I was in graduate school, I definitely was, mining that for various purposes, and it's really appreciated. Thank you.
Can I say something about that, Allison? Thank you so much, because this is on my mind too. So we have been having some really interesting philosophical discussions here at the White Plains Planning Department about home ownership, generational wealth, helping people get through the door to home ownership. The New York State had the Give Us Credit program, and a lot of discussions about helping to promote that among communities of color that are historically disproportionately shut out of the home ownership market systemically. And some of the discussions we have really been sort of some people playing devil's advocate and saying that actually a lot of times home ownership puts people underwater, that there are predatory practices, that people get in over their head, that they then have homes they can't get out of. They have other costs like the roof falls apart, or and then they're trapped in a home that they can't get out of. So that's why I would really love to have like a work group. The city receives funding from developers sometimes to pay out of their inclusionary affordable housing units, rental units. And we're looking for the best use of that money. And we've been talking about, should that be down payment assistance? Should we use some of that money to help people enter the home ownership space? But the conversations, as I say, have gotten very philosophical, really interesting. And we do need to think through all of it so that we don't put people at a greater vulnerability than we found them at. So I'm really interested in having some conversations about this if people want to join me.
Judy, that's a really interesting discussion. I'd be interested in it. And I think the devil's advocates are right. Like in the Clinton years, they helped a lot of poor people become homeowners who wound up crashing and burning. And it seems like the answer is not just to give home ownership, but to do long-term income strategies where people really have to have the education and training to make a wage, where they have savings in the bank that can cover the roof when it's time. And so a quick fix to help people barely scrape into a mortgage isn't the answer. It's really got to be almost like a generational approach.
And Carl, if I could just interject, because that narrative around the whole mortgage and financial crisis, I think can be a little bit damaging to our clients, because while it's absolutely true that many people were encouraged by all these government lending programs to buy their own home for the first time, I don't think that the reason that didn't work out is that they weren't ready to be homeowners. I think the reason that didn't work out is this huge industry got created, and then people were pushing people to buy homes that were well outside of their income and affordability levels. So not only was there a profit motive that kind of dragged people into situations that were not appropriate, but frankly, there also not enough housing for people to buy housing that's in their income level. So I think it's not an issue with the clients. I think it's an issue with not only having housing at appropriate affordability levels, but also having honest brokers that help people pick homes that work for their lifestyle and their income levels.
So maybe we even want to bring in some members of the Hudson Gateway Association Realtors into this conversation, maybe some lending institutions at some point. But I do think that, I mean, I agree with all these comments, and there's redlining, and there's, you know, the whole issue with, you know, predatory lending. And I mean, there's a systemic piece, and then there's a, you know, an employment. I mean, there are so many pieces of it that if we're going to move into this space as a city, we really want to make sure we do it, again, in a way that advances people and doesn't put people in a worse situation than they started in. So maybe not for this meeting right now, but for another meeting, I would love to have this conversation with people. Thank you.
Just one more thought on that. I work with this group in Newground that works with homeless families and veterans, and they take a multi-generational approach where they use private funding a lot, and they will help someone not just get a job, but get a college degree or even get a graduate degree and a skill. And so the executive director met a woman who was one of 5 kids who grew up there and said, my mom got her master's and all 5 of us got our master's, and we're all owning homes now. And thank you for sticking with us while we went from running in the door to building our credit and buying a home and learning how to save and doing all those things. But it's a longer term. It can't be quick, get a job and get off public assistance. It's got to be a trajectory towards stability.
I also think we need to include education before even helping someone, you know, get into a mortgage and buying a home. Just understanding what that entails. I mean, I remember when I first went in to buy a home, there was a lot I didn't know that somebody had to sit me down and explain. There's added expenses and responsibilities that's very different than renting. You know, even to the point to say, you know, before you buy a home, you need to think about how much money can you save and keep in the bank. If God forbid you lose your job, you know, how are you going to pay that mortgage? Because like someone mentioned, you don't want to put people in situations where they're not going to succeed, like they're not going to have a safety net for themselves should an emergency happen, should something happen to the roof. The fact that, you know, the importance of having home insurance, that's an added expense you're going to need to have when you buy a home, whether or not you have to heat your home with gas or oil, that's also an added expense to your electricity. So a lot of people don't know these things, and it may seem basic to us who've been homeowners for a while, but it's not basic information. So I think it's important. I mean, I appreciate the fact that I had somebody that educated me on this, so I knew what I was getting into. A lot of people don't, and I think it led also to, like Ana Haida pointed out, there was a lot of issues as to why what happened, but it also led. Some of it was because people really didn't have a certain knowledge they needed to have prior to getting into, you know, owning a home and what that really meant. So I think we need to create opportunities to really provide good education and orientation to individuals before they get into, you know, this type of thing.
This flows right into my topic that I want to talk about. Can I jump in there?
Go ahead.
There's another $12 million coming to Westchester. It's home ARP for American Rescue Plan. And it's coming now, and the 4 different jurisdictions that are getting the money, they have to consult with the CoC and others, come up with plans, submit written plans, and probably by early next year, they can be spending it. And Yonkers is getting nearly 4.7 million. The county's getting a little over 4 million. Mount Vernon, 1.8 million. New Rochelle, just under 1.5. So those are the pots it's split into. It can be used to develop new housing, to do any kind of services that are eligible under CoC or ESG, to do tenant-based rent subsidies, including contracting with experienced not-for-profits to hold the leases and sublet with people. And up to 5% can be used for capacity building to make the nonprofits better able to manage the program. What's cool about it is it gives us a chance to consider something we've never had before. We started with permanent supported housing, and that was supposed to be forever, and you had no hope of ever getting out of it. And HUD realized not everyone needed help forever, so they invented rapid rehousing, and that was great. And you got services to get independent, but you had a 24-month clock. And picture lots of people, long-term public assistance, or an 18-year-old, or all sorts of people, 24 months from here to being able to afford housing independently in the Westchester market is really hard. But then we got the new emergency housing vouchers, at least for a while, and that's going to give people 9 years to get independent. And that's enough time to like get a degree in skills and work experience and stuff, but there's no services to go with it. So you really got to be able to do it just using what exists in the community. What's cool about the home ARP is you could do tenant-based rental assistance and any services that made sense for them to learn how to budget, to learn home ownership, build their credit, go to college, whatever you thought they needed. And we're supposed to present ideas to the communities, and they're all going to be having forums to do that. And I hope that our CoC recommends that they at least consider using at least some of their money for a TBRA program combined with services that fills that gap of people who need more than 2 years to achieve housing self-sufficiency, but need some kind of specialized services to help them get from here to there. And this will be our chance starting next spring. Start dreaming.
Carl, can you run through the funding breakdown by municipality for that again?
I'll do even better. Can you distribute it, Allison, if I email it to you?
I can, yes, I will post it on the website, anyone who gives me anything written, and we'll put a link to it under the video. And
right.
You can share your screen if you want to show it right now.
Here we go. What I'll give is this page. This is the national allocations, and these are the 4 that are in Westchester. And there is a brief, like 2 or 3 page fact sheet on TBRA with Home ARP. And there is, I think, a more general quick fact sheet about the kinds of things it can do. But TBRA plus services it's got to be spent by September 2030. So you can do a 1-year program, you can do a 9-year, or anything in between. It really just gives us a chance to do some of this longer term transformation that we're talking about.
Carl, I'm sorry if you said this already, but what's the eligibility criteria for people to get this?
Everyone who's homeless or at risk, and the community and each jurisdiction has to decide who they're going to prioritize and how they're going to select and how they're going to which activities they're going to do and how they're going to choose who does the activities. And then HUD approves that plan, and then they can choose subcontractors and start the programs. But that general plan is the most important step, and they have to talk to CoCs, public housing authorities, DV providers. There's a list of 10 or 12 agencies that all 4 of these groups need to be talking to, and maybe we can help facilitate some of that.
And the public, there's a public comment period. We have a meeting to set up with all 4 jurisdictions in the CoC, I think early next month. I can't remember the date. And we'll obviously, I mean, we probably should talk at the COC about what we want to recommend. There's the TBRA option, and then of course there's the base, what home is really for, is for capital projects, which is an option. And we haven't had this much money for capital projects outside of AHUJP in a long time, especially for shelters, which is a new home use allowed through this program.
So anyway, we had the ERAP program start, then we had the EHV wave, and now we're about to get into a home ARP focus with planning in the next probably 120 days or so before there's an approved plan and someone could act.
I'm sorry, what does TBRA stand for?
Tenant-based rental assistance.
Oh, okay.
So it follows the tenant, but it
Got
sounds like there's a possibility to do it tied to, well, first tied to a not-for-profit, but it also sounds like it might be possible tied to a property. Like you can do capital money with it and then do TBRA to support people who can't afford the rents in the same project. But it's funny, once you get into hard costs at a building, these turn into like a single project almost. Though you can layer subsidies, so it might be the missing piece of pre-development money for a kind of project. A lot of decisions to be made. And that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone who has something they would like to speak on? Any additional information? Any questions? Any thoughts on what's been presented so far? All right. It is a very exciting time. Carl mentioned some of the things that we're currently working on. In addition to that, the ESG funds that we have been busy trying to coordinate. The thing that I will say is that part of the role of the CoC, as Carl mentioned, with this new opportunity is to help organizations develop, programs that's going to serve this community. So with that, I will say that we're always available to assist your organization think things through, to make decisions, to identify populations that need service in Westchester County. So please feel free to reach out to us with anything we can assist you with. Any trainings that you feel would be helpful, let us know as well. We are very open and look for feedback in just about everything we do. So again.
One more thought?
Go ahead, Carl.
Got a lawnmower outside. I'll have to talk quickly. The New York State has really taken the position that they won't support projects unless the CoC supports them. So we're happy to work with you on that. And a lot of it is, it may require HMIS, but we can expand HMIS to new homeless projects. It may require that you use coordinated entry, but we've been really flexible. If you invent a new kind of program, we'll invent a coordinated entry pathway to it and work with you. So whatever you can build, we will fill.
Yep, well said, well said. All right, if again, another opportunity for anyone, if they have any thoughts, anything they would like to share before we dismiss, then the floor is open. All right, well, hearing none, you all have a great day. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for joining us, and we will be in touch. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep, dream on.